Good morning and welcome to the Battles Within. We're continuing our study in 2 Peter, and today we're in 2 Peter chapter 2, beginning with verse number 14. If you remember in verse 13, if we're back up just a little bit, but verse 13 began talking about the wages of sin, unrighteousness, pleasure seekers. So when we get to verse 14, 15, and 16 is what we're going to try to cover today, we'll see that he continues on this thought, Peter does. So let's read verse 14. Having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, and hearts that have exercised with covetous practice, cursed children, which have forsaken the right way, and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Barbour, who loved the wages of unrighteousness, but was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumb ass speaking with man's voice forbade the madness of the prophet. We can see that Peter is concerned about the depravity of man. So if you look at this in verse 14, having eyes full of adultery that cannot cease from sin, what they're saying is these men and women were so obsessed with the lust of the flesh that every person they saw, they emulated them as being an adulterer or adulteress, trying to entice them. They believed that everyone was just free, open sexual sin. It didn't matter. And is that not the society almost we're in today? We have tons of people who are just, all they think of is perversion. It says here, and goes on and says, beguiling unstable souls. See, someone who's founded in the Word of God is not going to be easily persuaded or easily confounded. But those who are weak in the Word can be easily persuaded. And that's what he's saying. He said, a heart that have exercised with covetous practices, cursed children. He said, these people, instead of following the Word, followed their own desire, covetousness, wanting what others have. Covet something that somebody was covetousness. See, they wanted, they saw, they looked upon men and women, and they wanted and they desired, and this is the type of example that Peter is giving here. He says, verse 15, which have forsaken the right way. These people that are trapped in this this type of sensual sin here are trapped, are forsaken the right way. In other words, instead of God's way, they're doing their own way. And have gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Barbour, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. If you remember that Balaam here they're talking about was a prophet. He was a prophet. He was in the Old Testament, and he compromised his prophecy for sale. He was a prophet for sale. So that he did the things he prophesied the way that people paid him to prophesy. Not much of a prophet, is it? Well, that's what he's saying here too. These people here did whatever they felt they could do to achieve their lustful desires. They would deceive, they would trickery, they would whatever. And he said they were just like Balaam. And he says, verse 16, but was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumb ass speaking with the man's voice forbade the madness of the prophet. If you remember, when the prophet was he was going to prophesy these false things, the mule would not go down the rail he wanted him to go. Would not go. And the man kept beating him, he wouldn't go. And finally, the God gave the mule the ability to speak, and the mule said, what are you doing? Have I not always done the right thing? And the man didn't, to me, I would have been surprised. I wouldn't have talked back to the mule, but he did. And he said, I tell you to do something, you need to do it. And he said, well, if you saw what I saw, about that time his eyes were open, there was an angel there with a sword prepared to kill him. So you see, the thing is, that's why when you read the Word of God can reveal to you the things that you need to know. Because without it, you might have an angel with a sword waiting to finish you off too. That's all we have time for today, so let's close in a word of prayer. Lord, I thank you so much for this opportunity we had that we can dig into your word. A little bit tough lesson today, Lord. Help us to gain something from it and be able to take it out and share it with